Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Daniel Midson-Short. Welcome to Self-Improvement Saturday. This is episode 7 of Self-Improvement Saturday. We've been doing this for 7 weeks. That's crazy. Hello to those of you on YouTube and hello to those of you on Instagram. It's great to be here. Today is August 12th, 2023, and this is Self-Improvement Saturday. And I am Daniel. Good to see you. If you're joining us live, hello. If you're watching this later, hello. Good to see you. If you hear some background noise, it's because I have a visitor at my home this week. My mum is actually here from Australia, which is amazing. So I'm very excited. She's in the living room with my lovely fiance, Lauren. So you might hear some background chatter a little bit. But hey, that's all the joy of doing live streams from your home office. So great to be here. Great to be with you. And I'm excited to talk about positive emotions. That's right. Can you feel the positivity beaming out of me? Because I've been spending the whole week reading and learning about positive emotions and how they affect us positively in a good way in our lives if we are aware of them and if we embrace them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before I get into that, I just want to let everybody know, for those of you who are following every week, I really appreciate those of you who've been here live. Next week, I will not be doing a Self-Improvement Saturday episode because I will be in the Bahamas competing, hopefully, for the World Championship of Public Speaking for the 5th time. For the 5th time, my friends, I'll be going to the semi-final level and I will compete Thursday. And if I am privileged and fortunate to place in the top 2 in that contest, I will then compete on Saturday next week for the World Championship of Public Speaking, which is a pretty amazing opportunity to contribute and to impact people. So I'm very excited and hopefully I'll bring back some good news. We'll see what happens. But for that reason, I won't be around next Saturday. We will resume in 2 weeks, which I'm not sure of the exact date, but I'll put up a notice on YouTube for those of you who are following there. And I will see you with stories from the contest, I'm sure. Let's talk about positive emotions. Positive emotions are such an interesting thing. I have a bunch of notes here that I want to go through today that I have prepared. And I also, again, want to credit 2 books that have really impacted me in the way I've been thinking about positive emotions, because they are something that I don't think we really comprehend the different phases of positive emotions in our lives. We just tend to think in terms of sad or happy or whatever. We don't think that there's grades of positive emotions. And so this is something I've been doing a deep dive into. Again, the books that have really impacted me, number 1 is Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. Really, really recommend David Hawkins' book, Letting Go. Brilliant work, especially understanding the negative emotions and how they impact your life if you're not aware of them. And then the other book that I picked up by him just this week and I've been reading is Transcending, I had to look at the title, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, which I know sounds very heavy, and it is a little heavy, I'll tell you that. But this one kind of goes into a deeper dive around your consciousness and the awareness of the different levels of emotions. So it's definitely something that takes a little bit of grasping, but if you're open to at least spiritual and personal development, self-actualization, I think it's well worth a read. So Transcending the Levels of Consciousness and Letting Go are well worth checking out. And they have really informed how I've been thinking about positive emotions. So let's get into it. Let's talk about them. As I said earlier, positive emotions are something that a lot of us don't really think about. We don't go into depth and we just kind of think, am I happy or not? That's kind of our positive emotion understanding. But there's actually a lot of them and there's a lot of levels of development when it comes to positive emotions. And David Hawkins really defines them well in a spectrum as you're going up. And if you read these books, it will make a lot more sense. And I'm going to attempt to explain some of them today, and hopefully it will be of interest for you. The most important thing to understand is that even though positive emotions are desired, we want to have them in our lives, very often they're hard to maintain. And the reason for that is because of our dependence on the ego. And without getting too heavily into it in this discussion, maybe in a future Self-Improvement Saturday, we'll talk about the ego in depth. But the ego essentially is the protective part of your psyche or your brain in a way. It's the part of you that thinks about safety, security, thinks about acceptance, social, fitting in with social settings, things like that, all those things. And because of that, negative emotions tend to drive the ego because it's looking at risk, it's looking at safety, it's trying to avoid things in a lot of respects. So if you think about the way you feel most of the time, you probably sit somewhere either in neutral or you may lean a little bit towards the negative approach or feelings because of the ego. It's actually that's what's driving them a lot of the times because human beings are intrinsically driven to survive and to actually keep themselves safe, and especially those they love, and be in a comfortable environment. So positive emotions are kind of a secondary thing. They only come online once we feel safe and secure. So if you haven't watched the previous episode on negative emotions, I'd recommend watching that because that's where a lot of the time we sit in the ego and we sit in those negative type emotions. So think about that as we're going through and realize that you don't have to be in positive emotions all the time. It's normal to go up and down, but as you are aware of them, you will find that it's easier to kind of regenerate them, have them come back in your life. I also think it takes a shift in your mentality to consciously try to choose to be a positive person. There is absolutely a lot of problems and negativity and tragedy and failure and things in the world, and I want to acknowledge that. It's a lot of difficult things happen all the time, but also a lot of positive, great things happen all the time. And it really depends on how you consciously want to be as a person. There's no right or wrong, but if you as a person say, hey, I consciously want to be more positive, which I think most people who are on this self-improvement journey want to do, you're more likely to not only find those positive emotions, but actually emanate them out to the world as well. But it does take that conscious choice. Sometimes we get trapped in the negative emotions unconsciously. You have to say, hey, I'm going to make an effort to be more positive and find ways to do it. So with those two things in mind, let's talk through the different levels of positive emotion. Again, crediting David Hawkins and his work. These are very profound once you start to understand them, and they kind of wash into each other a little bit too. So you're not necessarily just at one, you might be at a lot of them at once, but it will give you a little sense of where you are as you're listening through this. The 5 different positive emotions, which I'll go through, are courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, and then reason. So we'll go through those in order, in sequence as they go. The first one is courage. And courage is very much at the borderline of between negative and positive emotions. So if you think about times in your life where you've been fearful or you've been very desirous, you're wanting something, or you're angry, or you've got a lot of pride, usually what's just above that feeling is the sense of courage to keep improving, to keep trying, to think, you know what, this is tough, but I'm going to get through this. I'm going to break through. And you're not doing it from an angry point of view or a proud point of view or out of fear. You're actually doing it out of courage. You want to be a better version of yourself. You want to keep striving, keep improving. There's something there that's pulling you up, if that makes sense. That's your sense of courage. And it's a positive emotion. Courage is also the level of self-responsibility. And this is a big part of any self-improvement that we do, where we realize that, hey, it might be me. It might be me who actually needs to improve and change as a person here. I might need to develop myself. I might be the problem in this situation. What a shock. Courage is what it takes to actually have that acceptance and that awareness that, hey, maybe I need to change. Maybe I need to improve. It's the first step out of victimhood. And if you know people who are in fear or in anger or in pride or even apathy or guilt or shame, very often there's a victim element to it where they're seeing the world or someone else as kind of controlling them. Courage is where that starts to shift. It starts to go into a positive realm where you are thinking, okay, maybe it's me. Maybe there's something I need to improve and I want to improve it. I have a desire, an urge to grow and to develop. I also think this is the beginning of self-actualization, which we talk a lot about, where we finally start to tap into, maybe there's something more to life and maybe I can become a better person as a result. So that is definitely the first level. And you've probably felt that many times in your life, even though you've had struggle, even though things have been difficult, you've still felt like, I've got to keep going. I've got to try and grow and develop and get better through this. That feeling of this too shall pass is probably a good way to define what courage means. So that's the first level. Once you get to courage, then you start to tap into the higher emotions, the positive emotions. And the first one that comes up after courage is neutrality, or being neutral, if you like. And here is an interesting thing, and you've probably experienced it in some parts of your life, and other parts of your life you don't experience it. When you are neutral, it means you're neither needing something or not needing it. And very often in our lives, a lot of our suffering comes from attachment of thinking that we need something, or we need to be something, to do something, to have something, or we feel like we're lacking something, whether it's money or success or prestige or whatever. When you get to the neutral stage, you start to realize, I don't need it and I'm happy to have it. You're kind of in the middle there and you're balanced. And that neutral feeling is actually quite positive because you're more present in the world. You're more aware of how things are just flowing. You're having a good time, but you're not really stuck in the mire of what's happening in the emotions. And a good example of this is if you've ever watched or been to a sporting event and you've watched people who don't care about the sport, they're kind of like, okay, that team won. Great. Oh, that team scored a goal. Okay, good. No worries. They're just enjoying the moment, whatever, versus the people who are very attached to the outcome and they're like, oh, my team has to score. They have to win. And they're all pent up and crazy. And then if their team scores, they go crazy. Both those are examples of not being neutral, whereas the person who doesn't have as they say, dog in the fight either way, they don't care, that is a neutral person. And that is a positive way to be in your life. And what I've found is that most of the time, if I want to balance myself and I'm getting sort of stressed out about something, if I can just focus on being more neutral and sort of being balanced, it actually helps me to enjoy the journey a lot more. So one of the ways I do this is when I'm in traffic, which I live in Los Angeles, so we're near Los Angeles, so there's a lot of traffic where I am. And sometimes I get in there and I'm like, damn it, just get out of my way. I got to get going because I'm attached to getting where I need to go. Sometimes I just say, you know what, let's just be neutral. Let's listen to some music. Let's listen to an audiobook. Let's enjoy the day. It's a nice day. Let's look at people in the cars as we're all cruising in traffic, whatever. And I get into a neutral zone and the experience is completely different. So that's a way to be in your life. And it has a lot of value if you find yourself getting very emotionally torn, is to be more neutral. It's not easy, but it is a practice that you can get used to if you keep doing it. So that's neutrality. Beyond that, beyond neutrality, the next level is willingness. And willingness is when we start to desire to contribute and to use our talents and abilities in the world in a way that helps, that gives back. And what I'm doing right here, right now, today is an example of that. I have a passion for personal development, self-improvement, self-actualization. I love to read, hence all my nerdy books. And I love to speak. And so me channeling that desire or that talent or ability or interest into something that helps the world, that is going to make a big difference because I'm going to feel great about myself because I'm using my skills and abilities, and it's hopefully going to contribute to people. And I know it does because I get comments and people reaching out to me and saying, hey, you've really helped me in some way. That's because at this level of willingness, I am putting back into the world. You see this a lot in people who work for nonprofits or do some sort of volunteer work, or maybe they help a family member who's less fortunate or something like that. That desire to actually help others comes online at this point. And in Maslow's terms, you have self-actualization and then you have transcendence. And transcendence is when you start to give to people unconditionally. I'm not saying no means am I at that level, but parts of me tune into that sometimes where I go, oh, maybe I just want to do this because I love helping. Maybe I just want to contribute back to someone. You've probably felt that as well. That's the level of willingness. If you are in a career that you love, that you feel makes a difference in the world, you are probably living in willingness a lot of the time. If you have a talent or an ability that you feel is making a positive impact, then you're in willingness. Or if you're just a kind person who makes an effort to make other people feel good about themselves, you're using the best of yourself to make the world better, then you are in a state of willingness. And you can already imagine just doing that, how that makes you feel. It makes you feel very positive in your life. So that's the level of willingness. It's a wonderful way to be. And the more you tune into it, the more rewards you get at a spiritual or at an emotional level, the more you'll realize it's just its own reward. You don't need anything else for it, if that makes sense. Above willingness is acceptance. And this level is something I'm still trying to tap into, because it is essentially the level where the ego starts to disappear in your life. And I will admit, I am very driven by my ego, my desire to stand out, to be special, to be accepted, to be loved and recognized. It's a part of all of us, but for me, it's a strong desire. It's driven a lot of my successes that I've had. But at the level of acceptance, you start to realize that maybe you're not that important. Maybe you're just a piece of sand on the beach, whatever you want to say. You are part of society, you are part of the world, but you're no more special or better than anybody else. Everyone is equal and important in the same way. And you start to accept that life is just this journey, and what happens to you happens, and that you take it in and you have gratitude for it, and you are evolving along with it. It's almost like you're riding the waves of life, and you're not trying to control them and push them as much. And so when you get to acceptance, it's a very Zen, calm feeling. And you see a lot of people who are very spiritual, like if you see people who are monks, or people who are maybe pastors of churches or things like that, they live with this acceptance because they think of things beyond themselves, whether it's God or it's a level of enlightenment or things like that. That is where we start to get this level of acceptance. I think as a world, we are starting to move closer to that. We're starting to get more of that acceptance and inclusivity and equality and things like that coming into our consciousness, versus being a competitive world. Without getting too woo-woo into it, that's what's starting to happen in the zeitgeist, or the world consciousness, if you like, that we're recognizing the importance of everyone as equal, versus having, levels of society, or people who are kings and dukes and lords and all that kind of stuff that used to be important. Now it's becoming about we the people, if you like. And I think that's why, in particular, America is really recognized in a lot of respects, because it was one of the first places to recognize the people as having strength and importance in themselves. I'm not trying to big up America. I'm from Australia originally, but I do notice that living in this culture, that there is that perception of we the people, which is very much about a level of acceptance and, and equality and inclusiveness. The other side of acceptance, which is something that I have been tapping into more as I've been learning these ideas, is that happiness comes from inside. That actually nothing you do, nothing you achieve, nothing you have gives you any satisfaction. It's actually how you feel about it. It's what you decide to feel inside that makes the difference. So if you, as you are right now, wherever you are, if you're watching this with me here or later, if you just decide right now to be happy, or be happier in yourself, because you're alive, because you're free, because you're able to hear and see and think. If you just decide that you're happy, you are. And if you keep practicing that acceptance of happiness being on the inside, it becomes a little bit of a mental habit, and you will find that it's easier to get back to. And this is the thing, I think, very often when we think about just the basic emotions of sad versus happy, that's what we're tapping into sometimes, is we go all the way up into inner happiness and we go, oh, I'm just happy and complete and I feel great in this moment. That's what we're tapping into. And that's that level of acceptance and realizing that happiness actually comes from the inside. That's why I believe gratitude is so valuable. And I know it sounds like something Oprah would say or whatever, but there is value in just seeing what you have and valuing what you have and living in that. And when you do that, it really triggers that inner happiness feeling. Doesn't mean that everything in your life is perfect, problems are solved, but at the core of that acceptance, that idea that the world is full, and that you're not some magical celebrity, standout, important person. You're actually just a part of the world. You're in it. You're of it. And the fact that happiness comes from within, those are really the core feelings of acceptance. And the more you tune into that, the more at peace you will feel, and the happier you will feel, basically. The final level that I want to talk about is reason. And this one seems strange to be above all the others, like courage and neutrality and willingness and acceptance. It's not necessarily above, but it does, in terms of the way David Hawkins talks about them, it is an evolved level, a way of being. So reason is very much about the what they call the left brain, the logic, science, philosophy, psychology, that part of our brain. And if you look at our world today, particularly since the kind of emergence of the internet, that's very much a part of what we are as a society. We're very technical, technology oriented. We're very technical. We tend to look for the science behind things and the reasoning behind things a lot of the time. And that's great because it means that we advance as a society and as a culture and as a world. If you think about the last 30 years, how much our world has evolved and changed because of technology, not all of it's been positive, I agree, but a lot of it has. The fact I'm talking to you right now is from the emergence of technology. That is because of the rational level of positive emotions. We are able to tune into our intellect. We're able to think about things. We're able to solve problems. And we're able to work together in a positive way to make things better. A lot of the best philosophers like Aristotle or Plato or whoever, they were tapping into this way back when. They were starting to really think about the meaning of life and what does it mean to be ethical and a good person and those type of things. They were thinking about it at a rational, intellectual level. In our modern world, with things like, say, Wikipedia, we have this incredible resource of rational information that we can tap into. And what I find is that if I really want to improve in some way, that's the level I need to go to. So me reading all these books right now, if I turn them the right way, reading all these books is giving me a rational understanding of these levels. That's what I'm doing right here with you, is talking through the rational understanding of the levels of positive emotion. And so doing that gives me a better level of development and a level of enjoyment as well. And so you probably do that in your life where you tap into things, you get nerdy about something, you get excited about whatever passions and hobbies you have. It's because you're in a rational state and you're very into what you're doing. And I think that's a great source of happiness in our lives. For me, Lauren always laughs because every time a new book arrives at our house from Amazon, I'm so excited. I'm like looking at it like a big nerd. Oh, look at this book. It's so exciting. It's because the rational happiness in my brain, the positive emotion of rationalness, is starting to fire off, and I'm very excited about the potential of what I can learn. So that is another level of positive emotion, and I think it's important to recognize because a lot of the world today lives in that rational state, and it is a great thing because, as I said, it's creating positivity, it's creating improvement in our world versus just dwelling in problems and feeling like everything is hopeless. We're intellectualizing and we're saying, okay, how can we as a culture, as a world, as a society, what can we do to make things better? And that's where laws and systems and technology and everything evolve from. So that is the level of reason. So there we go, my friends. That is 5 levels of positive emotion. So we have courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, and reason. And you probably have tapped into all of those over the last couple of weeks, but you may not have been aware of it until just now because you hadn't really defined them. Maybe you just felt happy, but it was actually a level of acceptance, or it was courage, or it was reasoning, or whatever. But now you have these tools, you can understand a bit better what creates the positive emotions and where they're coming from. There are levels above these, and I call those evolved emotions. And in the future, I will absolutely get into that in a deep dive. I need to read more and understand them. They are things like love and joy and enlightenment. Right now, I don't feel like I'm at the point of development where I quite understand how to explain those. So down the path, sometime we will get into those in a lot more depth. But yeah, if you want to learn more about those right now, check out The Map of Consciousness by David Hawkins, or Letting Go, or Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, which is my current read. So there's a lot of information in there. I just don't think I'm at the level to really understand those yet to share about them, but they are absolutely above all of these is love and joy and enlightenment. To finish today, I want to share one metaphor that I love that David Hawkins talks about a lot, is this idea that the way we feel is very much like the sun. So if you think about if it's a cloudy day, like it is right here, right now, the sun is still there. It's still behind the clouds, but we feel like it's a cloudy day. It's gray, it's overcast, whatever, because we can only see the clouds. And the sun is still there, and it's only when the clouds disappear that the sun appears to us and we feel like it's now a sunny day, when in actuality, it was always a sunny day. It was just covered by clouds. If you've ever taken a trip in a plane and you've gone above the clouds, you've seen that. It can be raining and gray and cold, and suddenly you go through the clouds and it's a beautiful day. That's very much like the levels of positive emotion. If you just dwell in the clouds, which are things like fear and desire and anger and pride, then it will always seem like a cloudy day. But once you start to break through to courage and to neutrality and willingness and acceptance and reason, it's like you're going through the clouds and suddenly the world opens up and it's sunny and you're like, oh, wow, it's beautiful up here. It's the exact same thing. It's important to recognize that these emotions, these positive emotions, are always there. Just sometimes they get clouded over. Sometimes we forget because we get so into the negativity that the clouds start to become our reality. And that's always the risk, my friends. So whatever emotion you're going through right now, even if it is a negative emotion, I would say be aware of it, try to accept it, and try to slowly transcend it when you're ready. And what you'll find is the clouds will start to dissipate. And that's really, really key. So there we go, my friends. I think that is enough information. That's 25 minutes. I've been riffing around the idea of positive emotions. As I said in the beginning of today, I'm very happy because I have my mother visiting here. She's here for the next couple of weeks while I compete for the World Championships of Public Speaking in a week's time. So I will keep it quite short today. We will be back in 2 weeks. But before we go, I have a couple of comments here from people on the chat. So let's go through those. So we've got Fuchsia Rose. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. So you said, have fun on your trip and good luck. Thank you so much. I will definitely enjoy the journey and I will be trying my best to stay in acceptance and willingness rather than to go down into pride or to desire, which is where I used to sit a lot of the time. I'll definitely try and stay as evolved as I can and enjoy the journey and give back to the audience, and we'll see what result we get, hey? Thank you for that. You also said, never thought about being neutral as a positive emotion. Fascinating. I agree with that. Yeah, neutrality is an interesting skill to develop. It takes a while because we do tend to lean into some sort of attachment, whether positive or negative. So the more you actually say, you know what, I see both these sides, but I'm going to stay in the middle, the better you will actually feel. It's a really powerful tool to have, and it makes you enjoy life a lot more, definitely. Patrick Parker, Mr. Patrick Parker. Hello, sir. Great to see you. He said, great topic. Thanks for doing these live episodes. Of course, my friend. I'm very happy to be here. And I'm loving doing these. It's fun to just chat for a bit and nerd out about these topics. So really cool to have you here. And I hope your videos are doing well. If you haven't checked out Patrick's channel, make sure you do. Patrick Parker is an amazing YouTuber as well. And it's got some wonderful content that's well worth checking out, and just a epitome of happiness as a person. So definitely worth checking out. Rose, you also said, I'll admit, I definitely have a big ego in some areas of my life. I'm trying to work on that currently. Amen, my friend. I definitely get challenged by my ego. It is good because it helps me stay safe and survive, but it also limits our development and growth. So yes, the ego is a topic for another day, but definitely something to at least read about and learn about for yourself, because the more you can catch yourself in the act of doing ego-driven things, the better you will go for sure. And then Mackenzie and Jason said, fantastic information. Thank you so much. Have fun and good luck. Thank you. That is very sweet of you. So glad that you were here. I'm glad that this was insightful for you. One more time, let me give a plug to these two books, to Letting Go and to Transcending the Levels of Consciousness. They are amazing reads. They will definitely help you to think about things at a deeper level and a more profound level. And I know they've really helped me a lot. So there we go. So there we go, my friends. That is everything for today. I will be back in 2 weeks after I return from the Bahamas, hopefully with a bit more of a suntan. And yeah, we'll see what news I have to share with you then. So if you are joining us today, I really appreciate you being here. Please, if you get a chance, check out my YouTube channel. For those of you on Instagram, I appreciate you being here as well. Hello, my friends. Great to have you there. And I will look forward to seeing you all soon. But for now, I will finish up. So as I always say, thanks for being here. Thank you for watching. And most of all, thank you for improving yourself.